starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go. Bass in your face. Bass in your face.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Uncommon Sense with Jose Negron. Now, for the benefit of those of you who are not familiar with the channel or watching this channel for the first time, the reason why it's called Uncommon Sense because here on this platform, we discuss everyday issues where we try to find logical solutions. But not everyone uses logic. So for that reason, it is called Uncommon Sense. I also have another YouTube channel called Latina Diaspora where I discuss issues pertaining to Latinos in the United States. The link to the channel is in the description. I want to let everybody know that I'm currently live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Also, the subscriber mode has been enabled for the first 5 minutes, and what that means is if you're not a subscriber and if you wish to enter a comment in the chat, you will need to have been subscribed to the channel for at least 5 minutes. As always, I want to give a huge shout out to all those who have already subscribed to the channel. Whether you've been a supporter from the very beginning or just recently joined, I really appreciate your love and continued support. I also want to give a huge shout out to all those who follow me on social media, as well as to those who watch from the clouds and those who allow me to enter your devices, even the haters. So, what I'm going to ask you to do is, you have not done so already, I'm going to ask you to please subscribe, like, and set the bell notifications to all. So, therefore, whenever I do produce content, you will have the opportunity to catch it live or catch it on the playback. So, as you can see by the thumbnail, tonight's topic is avoiding toxic people. Now, in all fairness, I have discussed this topic before, but it's always good to have to talk about it again because we all have to deal with toxic people at some point, whether it be co-workers, whether it be customers. Sometimes you deal with people in your family who are toxic. So in some cases, you try to deal with them. In other cases, you learn to avoid them. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. Now, before we get into the main topic, we're going to have another episode of In My Words. Now, those of us that deal with the public know that every now and then you're going to deal with people who are very difficult, very rude, and very toxic. Okay. And they're going to try not to let you have an opportunity to speak. It happened to me this week, dealing with someone that was very toxic. So this person wanted to speak with my immediate supervisor. So I passed the phone over to my supervisor. Well, he was okay. So after she explained the nature of what the function of my job, I'm not going to explain it because as municipal employee, there's a certain code of conduct, certain things we cannot discuss. So I tried dealing with this individual. The individual continued to be rude. I asked him to please tone down his voice several times. After a while, it got to the point where I had to like terminate the conversation because it was not getting anywhere. The person was not being cooperative, and I made him, and I noted it appropriately. Um, there's certain people that no matter what you do, they're going to be rude, they're going to be toxic, they're going to be argumentative. And after a while, you have to learn to just basically just cut it and just move on. Okay. One thing try to do as much as humanly possible, try to escalate. Okay. If you are unable to escalate the situation, then you have to end the situation. In other words, because if you continue to have a discussion with this person, it is going to be fruitless. And that's something that all of us that deal with the public. Now, fortunately for me, I don't have too many cases when people are being very rude. And it is because I speak to each person with courtesy and dignity and a level of professionalism. Okay. And you have to learn when you're dealing with the public, you need to have thick skin. Okay. And you need to learn how to control your emotions. Because true, some of these people will try to elicit a negative response. So they'll say anything um, to push your buttons. You just gotta remain firm, and you just gotta be cautious, be professional. And at times you do have to end the discussion because if you continue, it's just going to be a more uncomfortable situation. And sometimes you have to avoid toxic people with the courtesy to speak without interruption. And some people are just basically dealing with whatever trauma, emotion, or unresolved issues. Now, one thing I have mentioned um, in previous lives, and I'm going to continue, I compare total health as a four-legged stool. In order to be healthy, you have to be healthy physically. You have to be healthy mentally. You have to be healthy emotionally. And yes, for those who are atheists who have a hard time accepting the concept, but you have to be healthy spiritually. Okay. If you're healthy in all four aspects, mind, body, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, you'll be completely well. If you're not well in one of these four areas, in one way or another, it will affect the other three. And we can see this, and I'm not talking about in real life. Um, I mean, there are some people. I mean, no matter what, you ask them how you're doing, And unfortunately, they tend to be a gloomy gus. In other words, they can never say anything positive, can never say, oh, everything's fine. Okay. Now, I do happen to believe in what's called the power of confession, which means if you state something, you bring into being. Okay, I'll give you an example. If I wake up and I make a statement saying today's going to be a wonderful day, chances are it will be a wonderful day. Even when you're dealing with the difficult moments, for the most part, it's going to be wonderful. Now, if you say it's going to be a terrible day, it's going to be a crappy day, guess why? It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And of course, some of you will say, well, Jose, you don't know what I'm dealing with. No, you're right. I do not know what you're dealing with. But I do believe in the power of confession. What you confess brings into being. Okay. And I will continue to state the fact in order for you to be healthy, you have to be healthy physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And yes, you could be even as an atheist, if you are mentally, if you're spiritually well, as far as being mentally well, as far as emotionally well, and physically well, you're going to be completely well. Okay. Uh, I don't have any hard evidence um, to back it up, but that is my personal observation. Which is why, if you're there, I try to maintain a positive attitude. You'd be surprised maintaining a positive attitude how much it's going to help you to deal with the challenges of the day. But especially when you take into account, you have to get up, get ready to go to work or go to school or do whatever errands, and then you, of course, when you have to commute, dealing with the commute, okay, which is whether it be taking public transportation or taking a shared vehicle service. Okay, you have to deal with things that are not in your control. You have to deal with train delays. You have to deal with traffic. You have to deal with if you're using a shared car service. You have to deal with passengers that can be challenging. You also have to deal with a driver that's not having a good road or having it being impossible. So these are challenges that we all have to deal with. We cannot control the traffic. We cannot control how the train runs. We cannot control the bus runs. All we can do is we can control how we're going to respond. And it also speaks about what I've said before. I cannot control what other people will say. I control what's going to be my response. And by knowing that, it empowers you how to act in a positive way. And with that being said, we're going to go to the main topic. Now, before I continue, let me just state for the record that the link to join the panel has been pinned. Should anyone wishes to hit the link and opine regarding the topic at hand, they can do so. I know this sounds like a broken record, but I gotta keep saying it. If I never see you before, if I never heard from you before, I will insist that you camp on the backstage. Then make sure that no one tries to load any adult images, which will cause the people of YouTube to take down their stream. Now, once I determine that you're not going to try any of those shenanigans, then I'll let you on the path. Okay. So with that being said, okay. First of all, let's define what are toxic people. Okay. Because here we don't just talk about our topic, we actually define what it is. Just give me a moment. I need to get a new laptop. Okay. Okay. So, toxic people are individuals whose behavior consistently bring negativity, stress, and emotional drain through manipulation, criticism, control, or self centeredness, leaving you feeling exhausted and unworthy. They often lack empathy, disrespect boundaries, and create an unbalanced dynamic where they take your time, energy, and resources while offering little in return, require you to set firm boundaries or limit their contact to protect your well being. So that's the definition of toxic people. Now let's talk about the common signs of toxic behavior. The first one is manipulation and control, using guilt trips, gaslighting, making you doubt your reality, or threats to get their way. Negativity and drama, constant criticism, blame shifting, and thriving on conflict. In other words, the inability to take accountability, which is for some people, it is like kryptonite. The lack of empathy, which is the inability or unwillingness to understand or care about others' feelings. Some people, all they care about themselves, their first, second, and third. Self-centeredness, treating others as a means to an end, focusing only on their own needs and goals. In other words, being narcissistic. Boundary issues, constantly ignoring or violating your personal limits. Unreliability, rarely taking responsibility for their actions, often playing the victim. Okay. In other words, not taking accountability. Now, I have a saying, it's not good English, but I think this saying is appropriate. When you mess up, fess off. In other words, when you make a mistake or you exercise poor judgment, you take accountability and say, you know what, I made a mistake. I should have planned differently. I should have thought differently. Now, I'm going to show you how to talk to you how to deal with toxic people. And sometimes you just have to avoid them completely. The first thing to do is to set boundaries, clearly define what behavior you will or will not accept, and enforce those limits. This is very important because if you do not enforce your boundaries, people are not going to take you seriously, and they're going to constantly test your buttons and and disrespect your boundaries. Limit exposure. Reduce the time and energy you give to them. Sometimes this means cutting it off. Okay. Sometimes you have to cut it off completely in order to 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 avoid robbing your peace. Okay. Remember what I said earlier. In order to be completely well, healthy, you have to be physically well, mentally well, emotionally well, and spiritually well, which I like to call the four legs of the stool of health. If you're not healthy in one, it's going to affect the other three. Unreliability, really taking responsibility for their actions, often playing the victim. In other words, it's not my fault that I'm this way. It's this person's fault or that person's fault, the circumstances fault. In other words, not taking accountability for the action. Now, how to deal with toxic people? As I said it before, set boundaries, which regarding those behaviors that you're going to accept or not accept. Limit exposure, reduce the time and energy you give them. Sometimes this means cutting off completely. Yes, there are times you're going to have to cut people off completely if they're not going to respect your boundaries. Okay. Don't get sucked in. Refuse to engage in drama. Good. Let's see. Let me see who's here. Good evening, Irby. Thank you very much for stopping by. And let me just state, my friend Irby has his YouTube channel. So I'm going to ask you to show some love to him. Check out his content and subscribe. Okay. So tonight's topic is avoiding toxic people. Okay. Something that we all have to deal with we all have dealt with from time to time. Refuse to engage in drama, arguments, or justifications. Stay calm and factual. That's very important. Okay, if people are yelling, screaming, whatever, you responding, yelling, screaming is not all you're going to do is escalate the situation and make the situation even worse. Good evening, Kesha. Thank you very much for stopping by. Also, my friend Kesha has a channel which is called Dreadlock Diaries, where she discusses issues regarding how to take care of your hair, how to properly treat your hair, how to wash your hair. Particularly if you're the type of person that are into locks. Okay. That requires care and attention. Okay. So if you have not done so, check out her content and subscribe. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, Irby. So, so the thing, we all have dealt with people that push your buttons and try and do not respect your boundaries. So do not get engaged with their drama, arguments, or justification. Stay calm and stay factual. Now, the next thing is you're quite welcome. Okay, Sean. Um, Prioritize yourself. Focus on supportive relationships and activities that uplift you. Okay. What does that mean? That means that you create a circle of people who will support you, who will care about you, who will be honest with you, who will not try to push your buttons. Oh, thank you very much. Okay, I really I really appreciate that. And truth be told, Um, truth be told, this is a topic we all have to continue. We all have to talk about because the reality is this: we all dealt with toxic people from time to time. Okay, whether it be co-workers, whether it be neighbors, whether it be uh, even members of your family. So focus on supportive relationship and activities that uplift you. In other words, people that you know that are not going to push your buttons, they're not going to disrespect your boundaries, they're going to support you, okay, and give you your space. Now, sometimes when you're dealing with toxic people, you may need to do the next thing, which is seek support. Talk to trusted friends, family, or therapists for perspective and strategies to help you to deal with toxic people and avoid when necessary. Recognize it's not your fault. Their behavior stems from their own issues, not a reflection of your worth. Now, this is something that's very important because sometimes we can make the mistake that people are toxic because of something we said or do. And I would say most of the time that's not the case. It does that for whatever reason their perspective is warped. You know, um, they're not happy until they create drama. They're not happy until uh, that they're the center of attention. And of course, the inability how to deal with difficult people. Now that we got, oops, sorry, let me just. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about limiting content when possible, or avoid it. Okay, because there's certain toxic people that we do need to interact with, basically co-workers or supervisors or even managers. It's just that what you have to learn is like minimize your content, your contact with them. Now, I happen to have a coworker that hasn't spoken to me in over a year. Why? I don't know. This person has not seen fit to have a discussion with me regarding the why. And this person is not only problematic with me, but problematic with other people, also problematic with supervisors. Why? I don't know. This person has not seen fit to share with me, so I'm not even going to speculate. So let's just, uh, in order to avoid toxic people, set boundaries, limit your interaction, or go no contact if necessary. Prioritize self care and focus on your own life and positive influence. Recognizing you don't have to fix and engage in their negativity. Key strategies include saying no politely, keeping conversation brief and factual, and disengaging from drama. Okay. One thing about toxic people, they love to create drama. Okay. It's like an addiction. It's like a dopamine. It's like a drug for these people. Okay. They love to create drama. So let's talk about strategies as far as limiting contact with these people. Reduce frequency, see them less often, take shorter phone calls, or avoid one-on-one time. Okay. So in this case, you're limiting to what's necessary. And this is particularly true when you're dealing with toxic coworkers. Okay. We all have dealt with toxic coworkers. I mean, that person that just love to be difficult. So reduce your exposure to a permanent. Be direct and brief. Say no to invitations without elaborate excuses. Keep interactions focused on necessary topics. In other words, just remember. Okay, you remember um, the Dragnet series from the 1950s and the 60s. What Joe Friday used to say, just the facts. In other words, keep it short and straight to the point. Do not engage in long discussions. Engage only those things that are necessary. So reduce frequency, be direct and brief, and create distance. Physically distance yourself when possible, as it makes the attitude less likely to affect you. Now, in a small office, that could be a challenge, but create distance to the extent that you're physically able to do so. In my case, it's easy because this person is in one side of the office and I'm in the other side. And there's no need for me to go there to that section. So now we're going to be talking about setting boundaries and protecting yourself. And this is very important. Establish clear limits. Define what behavior you will and won't accept and enforce those rules constantly. This is very important because if we do not enforce these rules, these limits consistently, it's going to cause trouble and the toxic people are not going to respect your boundaries. Stay calm and detached. Don't get drawn into drama or negativity. Remain neutral and focus on solutions, not problems. This is very important that you remain your composure. Do not escalate situation. Try to the best you can to de-escalate. Prioritize self-care. Engage in activity that nourish you and build a strong support system. Remember what I said a few minutes ago? In order to be well, you have to be physically well, mentally well, emotionally well, and spiritually well. Okay? If you're not well in one aspect, it's going to affect the other three sooner or later. Don't seek approval. Assert your needs and follow through rather than seeking validation from them. Okay? Now, if you in your heart of hearts, you know who you are and you are confident in who you are, you don't need to seek approval from others. I don't seek no. Look, the only ones that I need to seek approval with is God and Jose Negron. As long as Jose Negron is happy with me, I'm fine. As long as God is fine with me, as I'm fine. Or in some cases, some people have whatever is their higher authority, the higher authority. In my case, it's God Almighty. As long as God is happy with me and I'm happy with me, I'm fine. If you're not happy with me, it's your problem, not my problem. So we're going to be talking about recognizing and shifting the focus. Learn to identify toxic traits. Look for manipulation, constant activity, lack of empathy, or disrespect for your boundaries. Okay. One thing about toxic people is they try to manipulate the situation. They're constantly negative. They lack empathy, and they will they'll try to disrespect your boundaries. Focus on your life. Invest on your own hobbies, passions, and positive relationships. In other words, be you. In other words, be the best version of yourself. Okay. Which involve yourself in whatever hobbies. If you're into cooking, then always learn then cook to your hobbies. If you are into sports, focus on that. If you're like me that love cold weather, then focus on cold weather. And also, when I mean positive relationships, in other words, relationships with those individuals who accept you as you are, love you as you are, and respect your boundaries. And this is the last thing is very, very important. Know when to walk away. If boundaries are constantly ignored, it's healthy self-care to distance yourself or end the relationship. Now, in my time as a content creator, which has been 4.5 years, I have to cut ties from certain individuals uh, who did not respect my boundaries, who constantly challenged me, who brought their negativity. There's certain individuals which unfortunately I had to ban from my platforms because they did not respect my boundaries, they did not respect me, a brought unnecessary trauma. Okay. And at my age, well, actually, maybe no, let me rephrase that. No one at any age should have to deal with people who will not respect your boundaries. No one at any age should have to deal with toxic people all the time. No one at any age should have to deal with people who are unwilling to take accountability for their actions, who constantly blame others. Okay. Because as I stated, there are certain individuals that bless their hearts are incapable to take accountability for their actions. It's always someone else's fault. It's it's my no, it's my parents' fault because of that because of the way they raised me. Uh, it's my employer's fault because I'm not able to do what I want to do, and I'm not giving opportunities for promotion. It's part of my circle because they do not allow me to do whatever the fluff I want to do. So it's always someone else's fault. Okay, they are who they are, not because of the actions that they've taken, not because of the choices that they made, but because it's always someone else's fault. Okay. So it's very important to set boundaries regarding what you will allow and what you will not allow because you determine that. And if for some reason you are having issues setting boundaries, then what I would highly recommend that you seek help from your loved ones, your friends, or you seek a professional. Particularly if you're dealing with family members who do not respect your boundaries. Now, I am blessed in the sense I don't have to deal with people or family members who do not respect my boundaries. I'm fortunate in that sense. Not everyone can say that, however. And sometimes you just have to like limit your content, and sometimes you just have to cut off your ties completely. There's one individual which I will not say. That example of someone that's been permanently banned because of false accusations made about me, and of course, not having receipts and not having any any evidence to support their allegations. So I had to so that person had to be banned because of the toxic behavior that they had exhibited and the inability to respect. You do have to have uh, a certain amount of self love. Okay, there's nothing wrong with self love as long as you keep it within balance. I mean, proper self love is making sure that you're getting enough sleep. Proper self love is making sure that you're eating properly, making sure that you are being wise in the decisions that you make. It also means making sure that you keep your mental your, your appointments, whether it be regarding your health, whether it be regarding your, your feet, or whether it be going your mind. Okay, make sure that you take care of yourself. Make sure that you limit your exposure to negative people to the extent necessary. And also be prepared. If necessary, you're gonna have to like cut the ties. I have done that to people that did not respect me, that did not respect my boundaries. So guess what, people? They will show the door, and I say, bye bye, goodbye, take care, stay blessed. Okay, because reality is you do have to. I mean, you do have to value yourself um, to the extent. that you limit your exposure to toxic people, and when necessary, cut them out completely. And there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean that you're not going to, if you're a Christian, that it doesn't mean that you can't pray for these people. You could it also means you could, respect, love these people, but at a distance. But also, if they continue to show to exhibit toxic behavior, then you just have to learn to say goodbye to these people and let them go their separate ways until they're able to respect your boundaries and be a better version of themselves. Now, I've been talking for a while regarding this topic, so if there's anyone that wants to hit that link and opine, they're more than welcome to do so. Or maybe you prefer to stay in the clouds and enter your comments. That's perfectly fine with me. Just be mindful again. If I don't know you, if I never heard from you, I will insist that you come up in the backstage, um, just to make sure that no one flash anything they should not. Okay, and that's all I'm going to say on that topic. Also, be mindful that everyone responds differently to different types of stimulation. And just so happens that I've dealt with my share of toxic people. And, I limit my content and if necessary, um, shut it out completely. It doesn't mean that I harbor ill will towards them. It's just that I need to love me more. Good evening, Gigi. Thank you very much for stopping by. And of course, my friend Gigi has her channel, so I'm gonna ask that you show love for her. Check out her content, subscribe, and if you really enjoy her content, join her membership. You'll be able to partake into content that's restricted to members. So, the topic has been avoiding toxic people. We all have dealt with people uh, who are toxic, people who do not take accountability for their actions, people who blame others, and people who are negative. We all have to deal with such people. And sometimes we have to avoid them completely, like we avoid the plague, okay, for our own well being. Because if we allow negative people, if we allow it, negative people will affect our mental well being. It will affect our emotional well being. It will even affect our physical well being because sometimes dealing with negative people, it's very draining. And of course, it will affect our spiritual well being. So, it could be hard at first to limit and disengage, but the more often you do it, the easier it will become. And When everything is said and done, you have to think about your own well being. You have to think about your physical well being. Because, yes, toxic people will drain you, toxic people will affect you. You also got to think about your mental well being, your emotional well being, and your spiritual well being. Meaning, learn how to limit your involvement with toxic people and at times avoid them completely. Okay. And yes, there are times when you do have to avoid complete people completely for your well being. Because why bother engaging with people who are negative? Why constantly deal with people that shift the blame to others, who think about themselves first, think about themselves second, think about themselves third? And, we all have um, our members of our friends in childhood and things of that nature. And of course, um, dealing with people, just learn to respect your boundaries and maintain them. So it looks like no one is going to join me, so I'm going to start to wrap it. Next time I will be live will be Friday night at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where I will have another episode of Open Discussion. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Open Discussion, basically what I'm just to do is just basically speak my views regarding several topics. Of course, the audience will have an opportunity to interact by putting their comments regarding it, entering the chat, or if they have certain topics that they want me to discuss, I will do my best to comply. Of course, if it's something that I do not know, I will be transparent and I'll try my best. And certain topics I will prefer not to engage because I prefer not to engage with those topics. So, of course, I will ask that you respect my boundaries, so to speak. So, this has been a very interesting week so far, and I gotta admit, those memes regarding Nicolas Maduro being um, screaming how no one is going to capture him, and then when the authorities come to arrest Nicolas Maduro, all of a sudden he becomes humble. It's amazing what happens when when you're faced with criminal charges, and that will humble you in one way or another. Of course, one way to avoid that is to avoid criminal mischief. Easier said than done, though. But in any case, the topic has been avoiding toxic people, so I just share with you certain strategies on how to deal with toxic people and, if necessary, to avoid them. Okay. Excuse me, let me step away for a moment. So lately, I've been drinking water, more water, which is healthier for you. It It's refreshing. It cleans you inside. Of course, you make more trips to the bathroom, but it's okay because it cleans yourself, and it's healthier for you. Instead of drinking soda, or I drink water. It's healthier for you because, as I stated before, in order to be truly healthy, you need to be healthy physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So, pardon me for me digressing. So, I will be live on Friday night at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tomorrow, I will not do a live. I'll probably load another short video, whether it be a Bible verse or a positive motivational message. And of course, a huge shout out to my audience. Okay, I have really appreciate the growth. Okay, last year I actually gained 990 subs. Right now, my main focus is trying to increase the watch hours. So eventually, I get to the point when I can make that YouTube coin. I'm not relying on it, but it would be nice if I can get it anyway. And of course, the playback game, do your own thing. Um, and of course, you're more than welcome to add whatever comments that you wish. Just, just keep it respectable, okay? Because disrespectful comments, it will be deleted. You can rest assured on that. And I gotta admit, lately those videos regarding Nicholas Maduro are very funny. Particularly those minds when they talk about him being tough and that challenging um, the United States to come in and arrest him, only to be encountered by the authorities and they become humbled. I have to admit, they're funny. They're funny. I also have to admit they're funny regarding the fact that he was expecting his friends, the Russians and the Chinese, to help him and bail him out, and it didn't work out that way. So it is what it is. So, and of course, we're going to close the same way that we always close. We must do everything possible to avoid the presence of the mentally and intellectually challenged, because if we fail to do so, okay, well, next is the Islamic regime in Iran. Well, we'll see. We'll see. Um, I mean, I don't know. I didn't realize that our mission is to be the police of the entire world. But what can I say? But we must do everything possible to avoid the presence of the mentally and intellectually challenged. Because if we fail to do so, we will be infected by the stupidity and massive insanity. And of course, everything we say and do, we should do for the glory of God. I'm proud of my country, I'm proud of this country. Sometimes we make mistakes, nevertheless. So good night, Gigi. Thank you very much. And with that being said, I will wish all of you a very pleasant good night. Take care, stay blessed, and peace.